नमस्कार, म प्रदीप राज दाहाल, हिमालय टेलिभिजनमा स्वागत छ। दर्शकहरू, नेपाल र अस्ट्रेलिया बीचको सम्बन्ध स्थापित भएको 6 दशकपछि पहिलो पटक संसदको एउटा उच्च स्तरीय पदाधिकारी नेपाल भ्रमणमा आइपुगेको छ र यसको नेतृत्व गरिरहनु भएको छ अस्ट्रेलियाका सभामुख मिल्टन डिकले र उहाँसँग अन्य 4 जना पनि सँगै यो भ्रमणमा हुनुहुन्छ। यो अस्ट्रेलिया र नेपालसँगको सम्बन्ध स्थापना र यसको प्रगाढ बनाउनको लागि मात्र यो भ्रमण फलदायी हुनेछ अथवा यो भ्रमणले नेपालको संसदीय अभ्यास र नेपालका लागि कतिको महत्त्वपूर्ण छ, यिनै सेरोफेरोमा केन्द्रित रहेर कुराकानी गर्छौँ। हामीसँग हुनुहुन्छ अस्ट्रेलियाका सभामुख मिल्टन डिक, उहाँलाई स्वागत गर्न चाहन्छु र यो कुराकानी अङ्ग्रेजी माध्यममा हुनेछ। वेलकम टु द शो।
Thank you very much.
Mr. Speaker, how are you now?
Enjoying the sights, sounds and beautiful hospitality of this amazing country.
I think you have a hectic day today.
We've had a very deep and engaged series of meetings with a number of senior parliamentarians, obviously the Speaker and the Chairman of the Assembly, and met with a number of members of the new Parliamentary Nepal-Australia Friendship Group. So the engagement has been very active, very early in this visit, and we're looking forward to further discussions and learning a lot more about Australia's role here in Nepal.
Mr. Speaker, after 6 decades, parliamentary members, high delegates are in Nepal. What are the motive and what were the concerned topic that you discussed with Speaker of Nepal?
Well, for 63 years, Australia has had a strong bilateral relationship with Nepal, and there are a growing number of Nepalese Australians calling our country home. And our two countries share a great love of democracy, particularly around improvement in education. And they're the types of topics that we discuss today. Australia is a great friend of Nepal, and the communities that we represent in Australia are very active, they're very engaged with our democracy and our members of Parliament. And as Speaker of the House of Representatives, I wanted to lead the first mission and the first delegation that we've ever seen from Australia, as the relationship between the two countries is deeply important for myself as the Speaker of the House of Representatives, but also for millions of Australians who call Nepal a great friend.
How do you think the Australian delegation's visit to Nepal can contribute to strengthening the bilateral relations between the two countries?
Well, as Nepal continues to strengthen its institutions, as Nepal continues to grow its governance structures, obviously with the Constitution coming into play in 2015 and the issue of federalism and the structure of government, Australia wants to play, as we do with all of our close friends and allies and neighbours, a constructive role. So understanding where Nepal is at with its democratic institutions, and as the journey continues, and the country has come so far in such a short time, these visits are important to continue those foundations to be laid, so that as our countries grow and as they prosper, we support each other and we look at opportunities where we can, particularly on the economic front and also social engagement, continue to grow.
Nepal, it's been just 8 years we're in federal system right now. In what specific ways can Australia's experience with federalism be beneficial for Nepal?
Well, Australia has had a long and successful federalist system of government, and there are delegates on this trip to Nepal who have extensive experience with dealing with state governments, and in fact one of our delegates has been a mayor of a local council in her constituency. Myself I have a background in local government, in being a representative in the largest municipality in Australia. So understanding the complexities of integrations between local, state and the Commonwealth government are a level of experience that the delegates bring to better shape and inform where Australia is supporting Nepal at the moment, but also to learn about what the next stages are in that development, what the needs are, and how Australia may continue to play a constructive and supportive role through our aid, but also through our experiences in Australia for over 100 years of having a very successful federalist model.
I think you know that in Nepal federal system, though it's been 8 years, but there are some issues regarding federal system in so primary phases as well. How you think that federal system in Nepal it will be benefit to Nepalese or not?
Well, I'll leave that for the Nepalese people to determine.
In parts of you.
Yeah, well, I'm very impressed with, as I said, how fast and how quickly the system of government is being transformed here in Nepal. Going from one system to the other, I know there was an incredible amount of work done, particularly with the introduction of the Constitution, the devolving of some of those powers. We're really interested in hearing on how that experience is going. Australia's commitment of around $50 million from 2017 to 2027 to help with that rollout program is a really important milestone for where Australia and Nepal relationships are heading, and we want to continue to see that grow, and that is a bipartisan support that our country has offered through this previous government and now the current government to ensure that we get this right and to ensure that the services, the economy and all of the integration that happens across the three levels of government continues to be beneficial for the Nepalese people, but also for the wider region that you sit in.
How Australian Parliament and Australian government side can help country like Nepal to overcome from climate change and global warming?
Well, taking action on dealing with the climate is a big priority for all Australians. It's a major centrepiece for the current government in terms of setting targets in terms of the transition to a clean and green renewable future. So the current government in Australia is working incredibly hard to transform our economy, but also moving towards a renewable future. And overwhelmingly Australians are in supportive of that. Our contribution here in Nepal are around $1 million this year to assist with the International Centre for Integrated Mountain Development, and the delegates will be visiting the centre on Friday and also meeting with farmers to understand exactly the impacts that the change in climate is having, particularly in the regions. We know climate and the action is required, not just here, but all around the world. And Australia plays ready to stand tall and strong with Nepal as you deal with the impacts of climate change. We know that this country has had severe impacts on natural disasters. Australia has played a critical role in aid and support. And we know even as recently as this week when we arrived, the earthquakes in the Western region, and many, many Australians are deeply concerned, and our hearts are with the families and anyone impacted by those natural disaster impacts.
Till now, one people have died from earthquake.
Yes, and
there is one casualties as well.
Our deepest sympathies for any loss of life, and all Australians understand the impact of natural disasters.
Well, can you elaborate on the Australian funded and all the projects in Nepal and their impact on issues like climate change?
Well, as I said, there's a range of projects that Australia is committed to, working as a global partner across the region. But in our country, natural disasters, whether it be bushfires, whether it be floods, we're seeing that even in my own community last year, which was severely impacted by the rising floods, and houses and homes were completely and utterly destroyed. So even though our countries are far, far away, the impacts of climate change and the consequences of climate change are felt by our friends here in Nepal, but right across the region. So I think collectively working together, taking action on climate, investing and making sure there are effective programs here, whether it be for mitigation, awareness, or dealing with the effects of climate change, is something that Australia stands ready to support our friends here in Nepal.
Okay. Another point I came to know was good governance. How do you see the role of parliamentary engagement in promoting good governance across all levels of governments in Nepal?
Well, I think understanding some of those challenges that Nepal is facing at the moment. In Australia, we have a robust democracy, a contest of ideas, fiercely independent electoral commission, wonderful institutions respected by an overwhelming majority of Australians. We have a wonderful system of government in our country, but understanding the challenges, and that's why the delegates are here, to meet with your political leaders, civil society, organisations, volunteer aid organisations, through the work of our Australian Embassy and the mission that does so much good work in promoting Australian-Nepalese relationships.
What were the reviews from Nepali side?
Well, it was good discussions around some issues around the shaping of the budget, processes within good governance, and we'll be looking at exploring some of those issues, and where we can, through our parliamentary to parliamentary links, and in particular now, which was a very exciting part of our visit, the announcement overnight of the new Australia-Nepal Friendship Group. So those parliamentary friendship groups will play a critical role, whether that be the members of the Parliament perhaps visiting Australia or sharing information, whether that be oversight committee work that our Parliament systems does, whether that be the Parliamentary Budget Office that Australia has to provide that information, or even procedure and understanding of processes of the Parliament. As a presiding officer, we live by a rule book of the standing orders of the Parliament, as does the Speaker in Nepal. So any improvements that we can make, including dialogue and exchange, will go a long way to, I hope, seeing an improvement in our system of government and also Nepal's system of government as well.
What are the goals and objectives of this of the newly constituted Nepal-Australia Parliamentary Friendship Group?
Well, we heard today the various members, I think there are around 8 members of the Parliament who have established this group, which is so amazing and so encouraging, that they are really keen for a deep dialogue between our members of Parliament. We have a similar organisation in our Parliament. There are 68 members of the Australian Parliament, one of the largest groups, and our delegates on this visit have a high number of Nepalese constituents. I know Ms Ryan, the member for Lawler, and the member for Karangamite, Ms Libby Coker, have deep engagement with those citizens. And so you're seeing more and more Nepalese Australians becoming active in politics, in government and business affairs as well. So if we can get the Parliamentary Friendship Group here to have that engagement with our members of Parliament back home in Australia, I think that is a good thing, and I think we will see greater dialogue and greater exchanges between people-to-people relationships, because at the end of the day, that's what makes democracy strong, when you have people working together and listening and understanding their challenges and hopefully supporting each other.
And how it aligns with the visit of the Australian Parliament delegation?
Well, it aligns because now that the delegates that have visited the Parliament here, we take that great news.
Style, they will also go over there and they will visit the Parliament.
Well, hopefully we will see a visit in the not too distant future of members coming to Australia to learn about our system, and perhaps to look at opportunities where we can exchange ideas, whether on virtual or in person, to improve that people-to-people relationship. So it aligns very, very well, because our mission here was to learn a little bit more about the democracy that is unfolding here in Nepal and the amazing work that is happening, but also to strengthen our return when we take those learnings back to Australia to support the Nepalese community and the diaspora, which is growing in Australia, to show them that we have a deep engagement also with their home country.
What what do you found inside the Nepalese parliament and Nepalese parliamentary system that it looks same like Australian one? Have you pointed out some things like that?
Yes, I saw in having discussions with the Speaker and the Chairman of the Assembly, I did see a number of similarities between our parliaments. Very robust discussion, multi-partisan system set in the Parliament. Australia has a large, in our House of Representatives and in our Senate, a very large crossbench. We don't have as many of the multi-parties as we do, as you do in Nepal, but we're seeing a growing number of people voting in different patterns as well. So it was fascinating to get a deeper understanding of the political process, to understand those similarities, but also some differences as well, which we will learn and take back to Australia and maybe see some improvements in our parliament as a result of the learned experiences that we'll see here of talking to Nepalese politicians.
What diplomatic initiatives that Nepal can take to raise awareness about its climate change in international forum?
Well, that would be up for the Nepalese government to, advocate.
I think we have some advices for them as well.
Well, I'm confident that the government ministers, the Prime Minister, are doing a remarkable job. It's not always smart advice to give other advice to other countries. We have enormous respect for the sovereignty of the government making its decision, and as a presiding officer, I'd allow my counterparts to talk about the specific issues, but I would encourage any country to make sure that they're active and engaged. For example, I'm very pleased to see that the Nepalese Parliament and the Chairman of the Assembly will be attending the Interparliamentary Union Assembly, which I will be leading in Angola in a matter of weeks. Nepal is very well respected in that forum, and I can ascertain from listening to delegates and listening to members of Parliament just how important it is for those voices to be heard at things like the Interparliamentary Union, which Australia takes very seriously, and so does Nepal. So that's just one example of where discussions around the world community taking action on climate, making sure that everyone is doing their bit, particularly in the neighbours where you currently reside, between the superpowers of India and China, and Nepal sits in the middle between those two big nations, but making sure your voice is heard and making sure at all forums across the globe those issues are raised is something Australia is deeply committed to.
Whenever we sanction the new bills from the parliament, there will be some of the issues that will be arise inside the parliament. How can we tackle, how Australian parliament system, how Australian parliament tackle in this kind of issues?
Probably wouldn't give any commentary around the parliament making its own decisions, because that would be up for...
That can be happen in Australia as well, right? While passing the bill.
Yeah, occasion, there will be, Parliament will make determinations, but Parliament is its master of its own destiny. And, whether it be a sovereign government making determinations about, obviously the government of the day will, of any Parliament, will bring the legislation that they have a mandate for or they see to introduce, and that would be up to the Parliament to debate that, whether through committee stage or referral off to a references or policy committee, or indeed a government pausing a decision because perhaps they don't have the support. That does happen from time to time. In the Australian context, if I can share with your listeners, the government of the day has a majority in the House of Representatives, but in our upper house or our Senate, the government doesn't have a majority. So each piece of legislation, if you're talking about bills on a case-by-case basis, has to be carefully negotiated. The government must strategically and outline the case for its reform or its change. So that is the essence of democracy, ensuring proper scrutiny of legislation and ensuring that all voices are heard to make sure the best outcome will occur, hopefully with improvements, but with the government's integrity and mandate ensured.
Okay, Mr. Speaker, thank you for the time.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
दर्शकवृन्द, उहाँ हुनुहुन्थ्यो अस्ट्रेलियाका सभामुख मिल्टन डिक। आजको बसाइमा हामीले अस्ट्रेलियाको संसदीय अभ्यास र नेपालको संसदीय अभ्यास सँगसँगै उहाँसँग यो भ्रमणमा नेपालसँग उहाँहरूले गर्ने छलफलका मुद्दाहरू जो उहाँहरूले ल्याउनु भएको थियो, उहाँले छलफलको मुद्दा बनाउनु भएको थियो, यसबारेमा पनि छलफल गऱ्यौँ। आजको यो महत्त्वपूर्ण विशेष श्रृङ्खला यति नै। भोलि फरक पात्र र व्यक्तित्व लिएर उपस्थित हुनेछौँ। नमस्ते।